Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 63rd episode of the Zicast. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Zicast, and today I'm joined by filmmaker Armaan Rochlani.
How you doing?
Good, awesome. I'd like to shout out episode 31 guest Liam Chen for technical directing once again. So, Armaan, this has been a long time coming.
I've been waiting for this one.
You wanted to come on the show for a while. We were both roommates when we stayed in Los Angeles, so I'm excited to get to learn more about you. And how about you start things off by just telling us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a senior. I'm feeling very old this semester. It's my last semester. I'm going to graduate. I know Liam is too, but I'm about to graduate.
Me as well.
You're going to graduate?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I forgot you old too. Oh my goodness. All three of us about to be gone. This is insane to think about. But I mean, other things about me, you know, I'm a film major. I really like writing, screenwriting, all that. I've been into this for like years. And you know, when we were out in LA, everyone knew who the Zicast was. They're like, oh, Zicast. I'm like, I'm living with this guy Ryan Zy. I don't even know who he is. And everyone's like, yeah, it's Ryan. I'm like, oh, I don't know who that is, but finally got there, and I was like, oh yeah, I gotta be on this.
Yeah. And where are you from?
I'm from New Jersey. I'm from Livingston, New Jersey.
Awesome. And you talk about being a filmmaker. I'd like to ask you where your passion for film stems from.
Yeah. I think so. In high school, my freshman year of high school, I took a class called like TV Production 1, and so my kind of like film world knowledge kind of came from taking that class, and it was mainly like broadcast TV, live stuff. Like we would do like mock game shows, we would do like little news segments, we would do stuff like that because we had like a nice TV studio in my school. So I was like, cool. And I'm like, immediately ever since I walked in that studio, I was like, oh, like this is the world I want to be in. I didn't like now. I'm like, if you know me now, like I'm not really that interested in like broadcast TV, like live stuff, but I think it's still like exciting. And then kind of over 4 years of high school, like every year I was like my third year I TA'd for the TV class. Like I was a teacher assistant, and it's like I kind of learned more about it from like the teacher's point of view. And then my senior year I did like our morning news show thing. And from there I kind of got more passionate into like making content, like pre-recorded content for the show. So then I came to Quinnipiac, and I started out because it was all during COVID the last year. So it was it was like hard to like make stuff with, you know, you're alone at home with just your family, and you have to make contact with other classmates of yours that you don't see, so it's tough. But then we got there, we got to college, and I started doing more, like I started working with Q30. I started doing #that, which is the entertainment news show. I started doing Q Tonight, the comedy show, and for a while I wanted to go into comedy. I wanted to do stand-up comedy, I wanted to do sketch comedy, I wanted to be on SNL. That was a dream, right for SNL. I feel like my dream has changed about 20 times since then, but so after that, I kind of got closer to the writing side of things. So I started writing for all, like, I would go to every writing session I could so I could write the sketches for Q Tonight. And I did that for like a year and a half. And then I think I took a screenwriting class. I took it with this professor named David Gutnick. And he was like, I think the first like professor in college, I think that really like changed my perspective on something to the point where it changed my career. And like that's why I knew I wanted to go into like screenwriting. And I think just like writing in general has been like so like impactful for me. I think since then I wrote, because for his class, like it's like, I think one of my big things in like college is like not everyone wants to be here. And not in college. I mean, like not everyone wants to like, so if I'm in a screenwriting specific class, not everyone is like, oh, I came here to be a screenwriter. So it's like, you're just here as like, oh, it's after I'm required to take screenwriting. I got to go to class. And I'm like, I'm excited to go to this class every week. Like it was the first class in college where I was really like, oh, I cannot miss this. Like this is great. So every week I'd go in, I would meet with him after class. We would talk about scripts. We'd talk about writing. He'd give me more advice. I mean, it was, you know, I feel like it was just a great bond between us. So that was my sophomore year, spring semester. And then kind of going to the summer, he actually introduced me to his producers, and I interned with them over the summer in New York City. So I was commuting from Jersey to get there. And I mean, that was like an amazing experience too. I got to work, I got to kind of work with an A24 film there. I got to work with a bunch of cool people, meet some directors, meet some writers, meet some producers, go to premieres, do runs. I got to PA on some short films, met a bunch of wonderful people. Great summer. And then I came back and I was like, okay, I want to write. But his advice to me before he left, because he only really taught here for I think one semester, maybe two. And I had him in that class. So he told me, he said, you can write all you want, but you're in college, you have access to Quinnipiac's, you know, materials, their film equipment, all this, the vault right here. Make something, go make stuff. So I made a short film. Not a very good short film, but you know, I made it because I was like, I'm thinking it's gonna be the greatest thing in the world. I'm like, it's gonna be like the best. I'm gonna send it to every festival. I'm gonna send it to Sundance. Sundance is not like me, bro. they had no interest. Like I didn't even submit it anywhere. I was like, this is not good enough. We filmed it. It just didn't work out. But I think the main thing is that like at least I did it, and I learned like a lot of lessons. I learned everything I need to know. I think about like making a short. I learned a lot about making a short film. The next semester came, I made another short film, and I kept writing. And then, so I'm not a grad student, but I've been taking a couple of grad classes. So I took the Cannes grad class, and then I went to Cannes.
Yeah.
And that was like a cool look into the film world. Even though at that point I was kind of more decided on going into like TV. I want to write for TV. And so I wrote like scripts. I would write short films, and then I took a class that's like an advanced screenwriting, and the options were to take a feature writing class or a TV pilot writing class. And I'm like, this is, and like everyone was like, feature. I'm like, this is the easiest TV. Let me write TV. Yeah. Went to that class, had another amazing professor. Her name is Lisa Kors. She's also like, I would meet with her outside of class. We would talk. Like, I feel like when I'm passionate for something, I'm always gonna like go and like ask more outside of class, meet you, talk to you about like all this stuff, get more advice, all that. So I talked to her. I would get to know her. I would kind of like talk more about screenwriting, and I wrote my first pilot, like my first full length pilot, which I thought was really cool. And that was last semester. While at the same time I was kind of writing and rewriting my pilot that I'm doing for my capstone, which is I think the first pilot they've done in like 4 or 5 years, because it's all been short films. So I'm excited to do that. But I think that's kind of where the whole like start to end. That's like the film journey is like if I went from broadcast TV to film to short film to TV writing, and that's where I am now.
Yeah, you found what you liked, which is important, and especially at our age. And you talking about writing a TV pilot brings us perfectly to our next topic, which is your love for sitcoms and why you believe they're still important.
Yeah, I think right now there's not a lot of like, you know, when you think of sitcoms, you think of like sitcoms from back in like maybe like the 90s to like the 2000s to maybe 2010s were like the prime era for sitcoms. And I think like just kind of the way it's worked out has been like sitcoms have gone down in popularity, while shows like The Bear, which is like technically a comedy. I watched it. I didn't hear a single joke. Like I don't get it. Maybe it's not for me, but like I like it. I think it's shot beautifully. I don't think it's a bad show. I just don't think it's like by any means a comedy. It's just a 30-minute drama. Like they just speed it up a little bit. They get to the premise faster, or the plot faster. But I think the issue with sitcoms now is like I feel like they've exhausted all their points. Like they did like because like a lot of sitcoms is like you just copy a concept and like change it a little bit. So like they started with The Office, like the mockumentary. Like, you know, you look right at the camera and you're like,
gym face. Yeah, exactly.
You do the gym face, and that's like they started with that. Then Parks and Rec did it. Then Modern Family kind of did it. They actually never addressed the camera, and I still don't know, and it bugs me every day. And then you got other shows which are kind of just like classic, like even going back past that, it was like How I Met Your Mother, Friends, like the classic multicam sitcom. You got like cameras going in on like sets, and it's just like a Big Bang Theory is another one. Like these are all my favorite shows. Like these are the ones that I feel like I grew up watching. Like I used to watch, like I used to have to like, my mom would put me to sleep, but like I would sleep, like I had like a crib or whatever, I had whatever in her room, and I would just like look like this at the TV so I could still be watching the Big Bang Theory. So I never slept really, but I was always just watching. I feel like I grew up on sitcoms. So like now it's like the only real sitcom on TV right now I can think of is like Abbott Elementary. And even that sometimes to me just feels a bit, you know, not formulaic, but it kind of feels like it's predictable. And I was talking to one of my friends, like, because I feel like the people that these are designed for are not film people. Like we're all kind of tapped into the world of film and TV, so we're like, you know, we're looking at it from like the filmmaker angle. We're looking deeper past the thing. What's the message? What's this? How they did that shot? Whatever it is. But I talked to one of my friends from outside of film, and she was like, "Yeah, you know what's gonna happen, but it's comforting. You know, it's comfort TV, which I think that's what we're missing now. Is like comfort TV. Yeah, I mean, I think they're definitely more important purely because of that reason of comfort TV being a thing is like, you know, not everything has to be like the most like, because now that they don't do like they don't do like week to week shows anymore. They don't do what they used to with cable TV, where you like you get your whole family every Thursday and you sit down and watch what happens next to Tony Soprano. You know, now it's like you kind of like. I feel like this is the best example of it. Is like there was a show, I forget what it was called, but the show that came out on Netflix, dropped on Netflix, and I was like, oh, like we should watch this together. I said it to my brother and my mom. They were like, oh yeah, we both binged the whole thing over the weekend. I'm like, together? They're like, nah, separately. I'm like, oh, so you just watched the show?
Yeah.
Okay, like I feel like the problem with like, you know, streamers is that now everything's just too bingeable, and it's too like people aren't like really like tapped into the show if they know they have to wait a week for the next episode. Like I've heard so many people be like, oh, like I watched the pilot of like Abbott when it dropped, and then I was like, no, I'm not gonna watch the rest of the season until the whole thing's out, so I can just watch it one by one, because they don't have the what's the word? They don't have like the patience or the attention span to like wait a week for their episode to come out.
Yeah.
But I think right now, like even Netflix is trying. I think you've seen like with Stranger Things, they're doing like even with Squid Games, they're doing like half seasons now. Like they're not like doing full seasons of shows. They're dropping like Stranger Things, like episode 4 and 5 are dropping. I'm like, that's it, just 4 and 5. I don't get the point of this. But I feel like they are important purely because of like I think they're gonna be brought back soon as a comfort TV type of thing, especially in like because I think I saw something about this the other day. I was reading an article, and it was talking about like when the political climate is more like heavier and when people are more like stressed out, that's when the better media comes out. People are looking more to TV for comfort TV. The crazier the world gets, the more people lock into their shows.
Yeah, because I've always learned that like comedy, well, and art as a whole is reflective of current society.
Of the times,
and, like,
yeah.
I know we discussed this when we were in LA too. Like if you think like multicam sitcoms, like what you grew up on, make a comeback, what do you think they'll look like?
I think Brooklyn Nine-Nine is my best example. I think they're going to look like Brooklyn Nine-Nine. They're going to be like that show because I think they're kind of tapped out of the mockumentaries. I don't think they're going to do that anymore because it's old.
It's a little overplayed.
It's a little overplayed. You know what's going to happen. Like, something crazy happens, and whether it's Jim Halpert or it's Quinta Brunson's character on Abbott, they're going to hit you with the look. It's what happens. It's like purely based on like there's no laugh tracks or nothing like that anymore, which also I think laugh tracks kind of died out too back in like late 2000s, I think. But I think kind of if they come back, they would look more like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, where it's still multicam setups, but now it's not like, the giant cameras we have, like where people are rolling them around anymore. I think it's going to be more like, because I was talking to Professor Atkins. I don't know if you know, but he was telling me about, he worked on Brooklyn Nine-Nine for an episode or two, and he was telling me about how like the way they shoot is they have 2 shoulder rigs and a couple, like 2 cameras, and they just point like that, and then they have 1 main camera as a 2-shot, and they just shoot all their scenes like that.
Interesting.
And I'm like, that makes sense. It's quick. I mean, that's pretty much how we're going to plan to shoot my capstone.
Okay. So
I think if sitcoms, if and when, hopefully, sitcoms do make a bigger comeback, that's how they're going to come back. They're going to come back in, like, a more, like, somewhere between a multicam and, like, a mockumentary where it's still, like, a little shakier cameras, a little more, like, you're there, but there's no direct fourth wall breaks. There's no one's talking to there's no talking heads. There's no, like, I didn't like that, I think that's going to die out.
Yeah, it's a good point because Brooklyn Nine-Nine kind of bridges the mockumentary, but not, or semi like a mockumentary, but it's not like a mockumentary.
I mean, it's filmed exactly like a mockumentary. It's like the shaky cameras. You're like zooming in and look, but like I feel like the only difference is that
they don't address
it at all. They never look at the camera. They never talk to the camera. So I think that's probably.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And do you mind explaining to us a bit about your capstone project and what you're seeking to do with that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think. Just after like I made 2 short films. I think I made 3, but like 2 like bigger short films that I like wrote, directed, everything myself. And then capstone time comes around and they're like, "Oh, make another short film." And I'm like, "I already did that." I'm like, I like them, but I think everyone kind of does the similar thing with their capstones. They make their short film, they send it out to festivals. And I'm like, I've never really heard of anyone, at least from Quinnipiac, that makes their short film, goes out there, festivals, does it, and then kind of gets lots of jobs based on that. Like I feel like. So I'm like, if I really want to make something, let me write the sitcom. I wrote it while I was in LA.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I wrote it, and I kind of got the idea from Ragnello, actually. He kind of helped me out with that. But so I was writing that in LA. It's kind of based around the hotel and this guy who's like the son of this like billionaire, and he gets punished when he embarrasses his dad. So his dad sends him to one of his hotels to work. And with this, I kind of the goal with this is kind of just to like make it, and festivals are still an option, but I think the ideal is like, I want to talk to networks. I want to be like, hey, look at this show, or at least like, hey, I can write. Let me show you this. I wrote this show, because I feel like in a position of like either directing or writing it, you want to be able to show like the product at the end, right? I feel like I could be like, oh, like I AD'd on this film, which is I know that's what Liam's doing, which is cool. And I think with AD, it's like, oh, like I AD'd in this film, but you could just list down a resume. I feel like you don't see as much of the AD work in the film as you would like the writing. So I'm like, I want to take my script and be like, hey, I wrote this, and this is an actual thing, like like a spec script, and this is what it would look like. This is like a test drive of the actual thing before it would be made with a big studio. And that is obviously like wishful thinking. This is like huge. If I can get to this point, would be amazing.
So like a literal proof of concept.
Yeah,
for
quite
both
literally.
A film and then you in terms of your work.
Yeah.
And something really cool you did before you went to LA was you went to the Cannes Film Festival, like you mentioned before. You were there for 2 weeks and then came to LA, which is kind of a epic main character arc for you. So if you don't mind telling us just about your experience at Cannes and what you were able to do there.
Yeah, I think by the time I was ready, like going to Cannes, like it was like this. That was the summer was planned out for me. It was Cannes, LA. I took a break in the middle of LA and went to India for a week.
Yeah.
It was big traveling for me. It was my first time in Europe ever, actually. It was really really cool experience. But I think kind of when I was going to Cannes, it was like I already knew I was in like I wanted to go into TV writing. I knew that at that point. And I think what kind of is cool about that is I got to go to Cannes. I was like in more of like the film side of it, because like before Cannes, you take a 7-week class with Blythe, who's I don't know if you know Blythe Frank. She's great. She kind of teaches us about like film distribution and like the business side of film. And we got there, we go to Cannes, like we do the 7-week class. We all like kind of know each other. We go to Cannes, and it's like you could just feel the excitement on the plane. Like it was great. I don't know if you know the movie Anora.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
It's so on the way there, actually, we had no idea what it was. We had never heard of it. But on the way there, on our flight was one of the actors in Anora. I don't know who it was, because they were sitting like a few hours behind me with one of the other people. But I know it was like cool, because like, oh, it was someone from an actor in one of the movies. We didn't know if it was like, you know, the main character versus like some extra. But it's still cool to see like everyone was kind of like going to Cannes for like the same reason. It was like us, and like everyone there was just, you know, you could tell they were there for Cannes, like there for the festival. They were there for film. And then when you got there, it was like a different energy, man. It was crazy. It was like super fast paced. Everyone was kind of like hustling and bustling around. And then at that point we had already kind of met with our like internships for like, there was like a 7 to 10 day internship. And there were other, like, you see movies, you get to go like do screenings, and every like day at a certain time, there's like a website, and like the next day would drop, like the date, like the times would like appear, so you could like pick and choose which ones you go for, which movies you can go see. And it was like the hardest ones to get into were the premieres. So right when we got off the plane there, actually, we all kind of gathered out front by like where the taxis were going to pick us up to go to the Airbnbs. And we were all like scrolling through this, like everything's gone, because like what they do is like the actual companies, like they take out all the tickets and they give them to their like friends, they give them to their like to people that they want to sell the movie to, people that they want to just see the movie. Like, you know, it's a big business deal, basically. They're like, oh, like, you're a producer? Yeah, you should come see this movie that, like, we produced. Here's a ticket. And they buy out, like, 100 tickets right in the beginning. They have, like, higher level passes than us. It's kind of like, that's how it works, like a tiers.
Yeah.
And we're students. We were, like, but we had, like, market passes, so we were, like, somewhere in the higher sides of it, so you could still get them, but, like, you would never get, like, premiere tickets. You would get, like, you know, second day screenings, or midnight screenings. You can get stuff like that. And the first day, actually, we were all excited because, like, we, like, couldn't find anything. I think Julia Kuzmenko was the one that found it. I think she was like, guys, go to this one right here at the bottom, click on that. This is the movie with Nick Cage. And we're like, okay, Nick, we know who Nick Cage is. We have no idea what the surfer is, but it's Nick Cage. Very cool. So we all got this movie ticket. We like, a lot of us can go there. And we also, there's also people from Colgate there, the different university, and they also got to go to Cannes through the Gotham. And a lot of us were just like, cool, but that's like at the end of the week. So that was like our thing we were looking forward to. It was like, that was my first premiere at Cannes. That was my like one of my first premieres ever, actually, which was really cool. And you got to go there. We were sitting maybe like 10 feet from Nick Cage, which was crazy to like think about in hindsight, because I feel like that's like the part that people really like hearing about when you do something like go to Cannes. Like I'm like, yeah, I can tell you about the producers I met with, but like everyone's, oh, which celebrities did you meet? I'm like, oh, I met Nick Cage. I know some of them. They saw Woody Harrelson. They saw Chris Hemsworth. He's tall. There's a whole bunch of, like, I think one of them like was met Francis Ford Coppola and shook his hand, which is like crazy thing to just be like, that's like your new fun fact. That's your new two truths and a lie like fact. It's, oh, I did this. I met this person. But so I met my bosses in my internship. Me and Ronnie. We were working in our internship at Cynthia Films together, and they produced The Apprentice. Which was at that in Cannes, that time we went, like this festival was kind of the big movie. People were talking about it. That and Anora were like the two ones, and a lot of people were also talking about I think Megalopolis, but I never even ended up seeing that one. We just didn't get time to. But yeah, those were the two big ones that were like, people were excited to see what they did with it.
Interesting.
So we got to go to the premiere of that movie. We took shifts waiting in line for like 7 hours. I think it was insane, like all day, and we all finally got to go to this premiere. And it was such a cool experience. Sebastian Stan was there. The director made a whole speech. It was like really cool, because that was like the first one where it was like, you know, like this was like probably one of the most highly anticipated movies of the film festival. So it was cool to just be like, you know, me Like I'm Armaan, I'm just some guy, and I'm like here at this premiere, like hearing you talk and hearing all these people, like all the buzz. It was insane. But then through the internship actually was really cool too, because we got to get some experience. I know Ronnie got to do a little more with the social media side of it. I got to meet some other directors. I got to go and like I was doing like runs and giving people stuff and like handing people like stuff and helping them set up meetings and stuff, which was cool. We got to see a lot of how like the ticket process works. We were like setting up like invitations for like who gets to go to the premiere, and I was like, this is so interesting. Like they would literally have like, because everyone had like assistants, and that was kind of what we were. We were assistants. We were running around picking up stuff, getting stuff. And every big company there kind of like, not even the big ones, every company there kind of booked out like the full top floor of a hotel or like a floor of a hotel. So they would say like, because obviously, you know, they don't have offices in Cannes. So I found this really interesting actually. So like we would do runs, we would have to go to like this production company and go like deliver this or drop this off or pick up something for them, for our bosses, right? And we would go there, we'd like go up to the top floor of this hotel, and it would just be like, literally just assistants running around. Everyone's assistants. Like the actual people are like, you know, in doing important. They're in meetings. We're helping set up their meetings, but they're in meetings. We're like literally just running around. We get to meet other people. It was such a cool experience to like be a part of. I feel like it was like, I don't know. I feel like the first day I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like what am I doing here? But by the end it was an insane experience. We went to a lot of different like parties and like networking events. We had like a business card competition, how many I could get versus how many you could get. Me and Ronnie were going crazy there. Big networking guys over there. But but yeah, it was just such an amazing experience to be a part of, especially like because I feel like everyone there had just graduated. Actually it was just me and Michael Katz Flynn who were still like gonna come back here and, you know, do our capstone. So it was like cool to like be like, oh yeah, in my junior year of college I just did this casually, but you know, went to Cannes, you know, whatever. But it was a really, really interesting experience to be a part of. Yeah, and how was like just being in France in general? Like, how would you enjoy that? Oh, like just the country? Yeah. Oh, France was great. We did a whole day where we literally just went to like, I think like us, the whole student group, we all went to like a like this island off of Cannes. We just went to like, it was like a beach day. It was like a hangout day. You know, it was like a chill day towards the end of the festival. And I know it's kind of where we got to. Really, it was like our first like no one was working that day. So everyone was kind of like, it was like a laid back day. But I mean, the city of Cannes is amazing. I have like so many pictures and stuff just of like I feel like the architecture is so different. Like even in Europe, because I feel like they were all like, oh, I've been to Europe before. I'm like, literally my first time here. So it's cool to see. The bread is really good. Like the food is really good. The bread was really good. We went to a restaurant every time called New York. So good. Naturally, you would go. It's a restaurant named after the only place that wasn't French. Yes. And it was really good. And then it was kind of like just the city. The city was interesting because it was like one part of the city was like our like Airbnbs were all in this area, and then we'd all take the same walk every day going down like this big windy hill, and then like that was the whole like marquee and like all these other like tents and stuff. They had the American Pavilion. It's called AMPAV, and that's kind of, I still get emails from them today talking about like, you should sign up for something. I'm like, I can't go again. But I wish I could. It's amazing. But I'll literally recommend it to everyone I know. It's like, I think the best thing that you could, like one of the best things you could do at Quinnipiac aside from the LA program. And speaking of the LA program, that leads us perfectly into your experience there. So right from Cannes, you went to LA. So tell us a bit about your experience in LA and kind of what that taught you. I think right after Cannes, I went home. I got really sick for about 2 days, and then I went to LA. I was actually still feeling kind of sick on the flight on the way to LA. Me and Ryan, other Ryan. Yes, Ryan Agnello. Yes, right, Ragnello. What Episode 3 guest. But so we got to LA, and I remember meeting you specifically because we got there like way later at night because our flight got delayed like 3 hours, and you were like halfway. You're like, hi, I'm Ryan. I'm like, hey, Ryan. And so we kind of got settled in. I feel like the first few days were all like kind of still like we were still settling and we were still like getting used to it. And then I think overall our experience was pretty great. I mean, we got to meet great people. We got to go on the you had your big viral moment on Bad Friends. On Bad Friends. Yeah, you said what did you say to him? It's almost like your bad friends. Yeah, I remember that. Oh, what a time. We had a watch party in our room. We've had like 6 watch parties in that room. I want to go back there and watch it again. But I mean, I feel like it just gives you like just so much experience in the LA, like just being able to immerse yourself in kind of the LA culture. You get to be like, oh, I went to LA for the full summer, and then I got to internship there. I got like do something there. I got to work. I don't even know if I think I told you this. When I went to work at the film festival for a day. I think I remember that. I may have told. I don't even remember if I told you that.
Maybe I was just working.
I
that
think
day,
it was the weekend where your parents had come to visit. So I think you weren't even there. But like, we went. I had a connection from like back when I was home, and I connected with him. He was like, oh yeah, like I'm not there right now. I'm filming something somewhere else. But like here, do this film festival. Like you can meet all like people I work with. I'm like, okay. So I worked at a film festival that ended up being literally down the street from where we were staying, like maybe a 2-block walk, and it was like just like it's like just those small things I feel like are like the LA culture. It's like there's always something going on. Like we went to like the Grand Central Market was just such like a little. It was so like LA. I feel like that's not like you're not finding that in Hamden, Connecticut. You know, you're not finding that in New Jersey. Like that's something like that's very generic. I feel like to LA or specific to LA, I should say. And I think kind of with that came like all of our experiences that Andres took us to, which were all awesome. And then we all kind of got our own like outside experience of things we did. So we got like, you know, I know we would like every time we would kind of come home, me, you, and Ryan too. We would that because that's what my mom used to call, and she was like, "Oh, how's your roommates?" I was like, "Oh, Ryan 1's good, Ryan 2's good. He did this today." Like, yeah. But I think what was cool is that we all got to kind of come home and like debrief what we all did that day, and I would be and like I think Ragnella would come home and tell us about his internship, and I would tell you about mine, and you would tell me about like you're like, "Oh yeah, I met Rob Lowe today." I'm like, "You did what?" But I think like because mine was like a lot of like, you know, reading and like doing stuff on the side rather than like going in and doing as much stuff, while yours was like much more like hands-on, I was always like, that's so cool. Like I wish I was like more hands-on with mine. But then like my other internship came where I got to meet with the writer, and that was cool too. It was all like, I think no matter what you do in LA, it's still like you're still immersing yourself in the culture of it, which is like when I do eventually move out there, I think I'll be much more prepared for it just because of the QU in LA program. And like, and I remember the first day we got there, Andres told us, he was like, guys, these are really nice hotels. If and when you move to LA, don't expect this. It's the best you're ever gonna get. And I was like, oh. And then I thought about it. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I feel like I now know what LA traffic is, which is terrible. Yeah. I feel like it's just given us lots of like, not even life experience, but like it just gives you like a lot of like insight into like what LA is like as a thing, you know? Because I feel like I grew up with New York as like the city. If I am talking about the city, it's not like, you know, in Boston, it's New York. So I think LA and New York are still very different though. Yeah. Right? Like I think New York is still much more like, I feel like New York is just LA if you like went like that. You just really like you know, smush it together. And I think I would say like honestly, I think LA was probably like, I think that out of the two things I've done at Quinnipiac that I think were like the best for my like career development, it was definitely Ken and LA, and I did them kind of back to back, which I think is funny. Yeah, I was gonna ask you about New York, kind of versus LA, since you've been able to work in both spaces. I know you're a big New York guy. Like, what did you enjoy kind of about New York and LA? I think if I had to like kind of like, you know, differentiate them, I think New York is like, and this is kind of like, New York is less like, or much more populated, I would say. Like, or at least it feels that way because of the whole LA car thing. Like they say LA is a driving city and New York is like not. Like we took the LA like public transport quite a bit, and it was not like, because I don't know how often you've been in New York, but New York is nothing like that at all. Like they have like so much more options to get everywhere, whereas LA is like, it's a Uber or like, you know, I remember Casey would always tell us, she was like, okay guys, we can either Uber and it's like a lot more money, or we can take this train and walk 45 minutes. And I was like, we're gonna have a great walk, guys. But I think like when I was there in LA, I would say it was more like, I was like, yeah, I like New York. And then when I came back home, I was like, oh man, I miss LA. So I think it's one of those grass is always greener things. You always like, I'll look fondly on both, but I think especially for what I want to go into, like I want to, like if I want to go write and I want to write for TV specifically, it's like, it's all in LA. I mean, it's kind of no other choice here. Yeah, and the weather differences too, naturally. Yes, that's another thing I totally forgot to talk about that. It was just like so much high. Like New York has seasons. Yeah. LA, I feel like because we went in summer obviously, but like I know like the spring is a little more rainy, but it's still like never really like gonna be like snowing or freezing, you know, when you're in LA. Which is like it doesn't add to it as much, but it's like it's still, it makes a difference, I think. Yeah, especially aesthetically. Yeah, because it's like LA is like before I went and I would like think of LA as a kid, even I would be like, oh, like palm trees and and like surfing and Hollywood. And
Exactly.
I'm like, I feel like you learn that LA is not just Hollywood when you go out there. Like there's so much more apart from it.
Yeah, and we could thank Ronnie Diesel,
Ron Deasy,
and his Tesla for driving us around the city.
And I mean, that was so much fun. Like, because I feel like it's like different when like I feel bad. I'm like, oh, we have to spend all this money on an Uber, and then it's like, oh, we have a friend with a car.
Yeah,
you just changed everything, changed the game.
Yeah,
we got to go to all these different places that like, because I feel like going there as like us, we're all tourists in the city, no matter how much we don't want to be. I lived here most of the summer, and we're still tourists. We like. We still don't really know where like the spots are.
Exactly.
Compared to someone like Ronnie who's lived there all his life. So like I think we got to go to some stuff that he's like, oh, you got to try this. We're like, we've never, like, no website we could look up says that. Nothing we could really ever do would ever compare to like, 18, 20 years of experience living in LA. And I think also our one of the big things that kind of gave us so many experiences was my favorite website of all time, One Iota.
One Iota.
No, I feel like, getting up every day and we were just scouring it, like, what's going on today? What are we doing? That was cool. I think our first real thing we all did together was kind of not outside of like what we were planning with Andres. I think was the Dodgers game too.
Yeah, that was fun.
Which was really fun. That was like a good way to, like, I feel like, get ourselves into like, at the LA lifestyle. We go to Dodgers game, we do the LA stuff. That was the tourist stuff. And then I think the second half of the summer was when I was like, wait, Ronnie lives here. Like, come on, let's hang out. So I think then we kind of started doing more stuff with him. I think I feel like we went to like the Grove, which is funny, named after the building I live in. I was about
to say you're in both Groves, Grove here and Quinnipiac.
And back then I didn't know where I was going to be living in the Grove, but I would always joke about it to my boss, to my RHD, and I took a picture where it said the Grove, and I said, see you here next year, and I texted him the picture, and I mean, it all worked out. Clearly I ended up there now, which is another big part of my college career that I don't feel like I talk about as much.
Yeah. And speaking of yourself and your college career, I'd like to get into some like personal questions. And what are some like fun facts about yourself?
Ooh, this is a tough one.
Like things people don't know about you.
Things people don't know about. I think okay, this is my like one big thing I feel like people don't really know about me is like I feel like my biggest thing in life I think is work ethic. Like I think that's like the thing I'm most like passionate about. Is like if I because my dad always would say like, any job worth doing is worth doing well. So it's like I would never really like half-heartedly do a job. So I think that kind of ties into like everything else I do here. So I think like I'm trying to like think of a good example for you, but like I think any really thing I do is like I want to put in as much like my full 100% effort into it, which is why I don't like to do like too many things and like overwork myself on it. That's one thing about me, I would say. Another thing is like I think I don't really talk about, like, with people that aren't RAs, I feel like I don't talk about my RA experience as much. But I really do, like, because I feel like people, like, that aren't RAs look on the job like it's like, oh, you guys are, like, the snitches. You do this. Or, like, it was a tour group that walked past us today, and they were like, oh, yeah, the RA is like, hey, take care of your kids. I'm like, we don't take care of your kids. Like, we're not, like, they're not kids to us. Like, we have to treat them like adults and whatnot. But I think it genuinely is probably the best job I've ever had. And that, like, and I think it's cool to say I've had all these internships in film and whatnot. But I think I've learned the most in my 3 years with Res Life. I think I've learned about life more there, and then you learn about film, and it's like cool. I think in Res Life is where I've learned the most about myself as well as like just life. I feel like it gives you a different perspective because you get to meet a lot of different people. Yeah,
because you're like in the trenches with people, and I'm sure it teaches you how to like deal with conflicts and how to interact with others. Like any like specific situations that really taught you a lot about yourself.
I would say. I feel like every year is different because every staff is different. Every building is different. Like I started out, like I was in Legends as a freshman. I moved into Irma as a sophomore, and that was where I was my first like RA job. And it was an experience. It was I feel like first year a lot of RAs are like scared. They're very like you're very nervous to mess things up because it's big on like getting rehired for the year after. And that's kind of where you're like you're less comfortable in your like skin as an RA just because you just got here. You're new. You're the new one on the block. You don't want to be the one to mess it up. And then the next year I was in Commons, and it was their first year bringing back like quad dorms, and I feel like that kind of it was a lot more roommate conflicts. And that's kind of like that's what you were saying, right? It kind of teaches you more about the kind of conflicts you deal with in life, and like I think there's two types of people you deal with in Res Life. I think it's like the people you get to meet, and it's people you have to meet.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's like, yeah, like no one wants to. I don't want to meet you in a situation where I have to like write you up for this, right? You don't see the best side of people very often in that case. But then it's like I met like like a lot of my closest friends now are people that are other RAs and other like people that are like that I've worked with and people that I've gotten to know. And these are some of the best people I know. Like these are like some of my best friends, and like they're the ones that I'm gonna be like the closest still with after I graduate. And you know, because I feel like that's another thing I've been thinking about a lot as you get closer to graduation. Is like, you know, losing touch with people, because it's very easy to lose touch with people. And I think it's like a lot of the RAs I know are the ones that I think I would want to stay like very close to, because they're like people you said it, we're in the trenches, we've gone through the trenches together. That bonds you. That bonds you. I mean, so does living in LA for a summer in the same room, but yeah, I think that's like another thing is like being an RA, I feel like has taught me just so much about who I am, who other people are, like how I think just about life you get to know a lot of things. Like I'll always recommend that's another thing I'll always recommend it to anyone. Yeah,
and that's an excellent point that I'm reflecting on too as a senior, is that when we graduate, because when you're at school you're surrounded by all these people you know kind of at all times, and then once you graduate you're all separated. So that is something I'm reflecting on, like who I stay in touch with and how that'll go. But you kind of get into those good experiences that being an RA taught you. So how about you tell us one thing you love and one thing you strongly dislike?
Oh, like a pet peeve?
Yeah, like a pet peeve.
Like a pet peeve? Ooh, that's a tough one. I think, well, one thing I love, I'll do the love one first. I think I love like just supportive people. Like I think especially in the industry that we're going into, kind of in like the media communications, for me especially like film and writing, it's like it doesn't thrive well off, you know, you don't do well off of like, you know, negative like reviews, you know. Like people need support in this industry. People need kind of, I don't even know how to describe it. People need guidance, people need support, people need like, you know, everyone likes to be supported. Like, you know, I feel like a lot of people just don't kind of see things that way, where they'd be like, oh my God, you're like the guy with the podcast. I love your podcast. That's no matter who you are and what podcast you have, that's gonna brighten up your day. You know, they're gonna have you smiling. So I think that's one thing I love, is just people that are like supportive. Like, you know how people say like, oh, that guy's mean for no reason. Like I feel like I like people that are nice for no reason. Like it's just great to have in life, I think. And that's something that I dislike. I think I know a lot of people that do this, and it's like, and it's like my personal pet peeve is like, I hate when someone's like, oh, I have to tell you a secret, and then they go, you know what, never mind, I shouldn't say. Because me in my brain, I'm like, no, tell me what's going on. Like, why would you do that? That's like my biggest pet peeve. I feel like that, and people that like walk and like drag their feet. Those are just two. I feel like this is very random, but like those are two things that I like can't stand.
How about you tell us a bit about your hopes and dreams, professionally or in general?
Hopes and dreams. Okay. So I think I mentioned it, but TV writer is kind of my goal. And I think kind of the way to do that is you have to start down at the bottom. I think that's like every job, that you start kind of at the bottom and you work your way up. But I think TV writer like is like, it's hard to get to, especially for a bigger network show or something like that. So I think my ideal goal, you want to start as a writer's PA. You're getting coffees. You're like working with, and I think when we met with Dylan out in, because I was on the phone with him the other week. We were talking about it, and he was giving me a little more advice about it, because it's obviously that's the field I want to go into. So I think it was cool to talk to him. But yeah, he was telling me that he told me a little more about the journey, and it was like writer's PA. You get coffees. You know, if you're the writer and you're in like a circle table like this, I think I'm kind of like sitting behind you over here, and everything you say, I'm like, write that down. That's a good idea. Like whatever. I'm just writing. I'm typing down like super fast, whatever it is. Everything you say, I want to capture it. So that's kind of like the bottom tier, and then from there, I want to work my way up to staff writer, story editor, which are like these like different roles within the writer's room, which is like, no matter what, I think that my dream is just to be a part of a writer's room. Like that's just like such a cool concept to me. I think like it's like just a team of people supporting each other. Kind of getting their ideas like together and like working together to make something that's like bigger than all of them. You make your script and you get to take that and push into production, and then you can say, hey, that episode, I wrote that. Like, you know, it's cool. So then, anyway, story editor. Then eventually, I think the end goal for me is to be a showrunner. Where I kind of, you know, make my own show, write it, produce it, everything, and like be much more directly involved in it. I think that's like, that'd be so cool to be like a part of. That's like my ultimate dream, I think, at the end of my career.
Cause that's something Dylan Cohen, writer of You, that we're referring to here, is that he told us like something that always sticks with me that he told us is that like the writer's room is that writers are unique because they start everything.
They do.
Because there's nothing else that happens before that.
And I think a lot of people give a lot of credit to, especially I think in comedy, it's different. Going back to what we were talking about sitcoms, I think it's different in sitcoms because, like, if I give you like a line and you like absolutely destroy the delivery, you do it terribly, like. The audience at home is like, oh, he sucks. Like that was a terrible joke. But the other thing is like, so you're like, okay, he's getting the credit for that. It's a good thing I don't get the blame for the bad joke that he said. But then it's like, let's say you absolutely like crush the delivery, you do it amazing, you know, like that's hilarious, Ryan Zayaks. So like everyone at home is like, oh, that was really funny. That was such a good line by Ryan. I'm like, no, I wrote it. It was me. No, you're never gonna get that kind of like recognition as a writer. I feel like, which is also like something I don't really like. The fame part of it is something that like you don't get as much fame as a writer, which is kind of on the better side, in my opinion. I feel like being famous is like, I don't know. I mean, you're famous. You got recognized at a Chick-fil-A, right?
Actually, it was an In-N-Out, but no, I did get recognized. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun day. You came back. You were like, I got recognized today. We were like, what? Well, you got recognized, but you're not even famous yet. Now you famous. But yeah, going back to what I was saying is like, I think. Actually, another thing I should say is another part of my kind of goals. I want to eventually kind of like, I want to become a teacher. I want to teach something, like whether it's, you know, doing, I think a lot of these professors here, the best ones that I've gotten to know are like the adjuncts, the people that are like half here, half producing a movie out in LA, because they're the ones that have the most industry experience to kind of teach you. And I think getting close with your professors is like the most like important, significant thing you can do to further your career while in college. Like I think you can work a job on the side, you can get an internship, whatever it is, but I feel like the professors that are active in the industry, especially in our industry, the more I get to know them, the better it is for my career, because it's like these are the people that do it, like they know what to do. And I feel like a lot, like not even in the way that they can like give me connections, they can just give me better advice than like a professor that wouldn't have been active in the industry for a while would be, right? Because like they're active, they know what's going on. They like, I feel like that's just like so important. So I think I want to do that at some point in my career. I want to become an adjunct, like teacher, professor, whatever it is. But I think I want to do that. And then another big thing that I feel like a lot of people don't know about me is that I'm very big into like volunteering and community service. And I get that from my parents because they have a nonprofit. They volunteer all the time. I think kind of from them, I got like that gene.
Yeah.
So I think some point in the future, I want to start something big. Like I want to be able to help as many people as I can along the way. And I think that's kind of one thing I lack now while I'm in college, because it's like it's hard to do a lot of community service in college, because like you said, we're surrounded by everyone here.
Yeah.
Like people don't really need as much help here as they do, you know, somewhere else. That like, but we don't be there. We be on campus here. This is where we are. So like we don't see the need for it. Like. And that's why there's some organizations that do this on campus. There's some like, you know, clubs and stuff. I know they have like Qthon. They have like the big project. I don't know.
Big event?
The big event.
Yeah.
And it's like everyone goes and does their like community service, which is good. But I think I really do want to like start something that's like in the future, you know, when I have like, when I'm kind of settled in somewhere, I'm like, I want to help people. Whatever feel like going, I want to help people.
Awesome. What's your nonprofit, or your family's nonprofit?
It's called Better Living Through Giving. And they're kind of just very, so they donate to a bunch of schools in India, and they kind of fund them, and that's just really cool to me. Like, cause I feel like I didn't really like see, cause we don't live in India, we live in New Jersey. We don't see we don't see the like the magnifications of how big it really is to people, you know. Like I'm like, oh, you're giving money to them, cool. Like, but we don't see them every day. We don't know how much that money is really going to help. So then this summer, actually, that week where I went away from LA and I went to India, we visited those schools. And you kind of got to see just how like kind of like how underfunded they are, how much our funding really helps them. And like I feel like that kind of changed my life more than anything really ever has. I think that kind of made me more like, oh, like because I think it kind of opens your eyes to like what's going on in the rest of the world. Because like I feel like a lot of the times here it's like people are like, oh, I'm gonna go volunteer at the soup kitchen one day a year on Thanksgiving. I'm like, okay. Like I think that's great, and the more you help the better, but I think my like thing is I want to really like start something bigger. Bigger than anything I could do on my own.
That's very powerful, because sometimes you need to see it to truly
because you don't get a grasp on it until you're out there and you're like really seeing it like for what it is. And I'm like, I think the third school we went to, it was like literally like in a village. Like we had to drive through like literally a forest to get there, and it was like the middle of nowhere. And it's like far from anything else we went to in India, because it was all like everything in India I really ever do is like we go with family. And this was like away from the family. We just went with like my family that went to India. We went there and we got to see the school, and they were all so happy to see us, and I'm like, and they like, I think that's another thing I learned about legacy is like the legacy that my parents left. Like they treated me with like such respect and such like admiration, and I'm like, I didn't even do anything. Like, you know, like my parents did, and my grandparents are a big part of this as well, but I have no personal like stake in this. Like I didn't even know, like if you were to say that what the school's name is to me 2 days ago, I wouldn't have heard of it. So I'm like, it's crazy that like to think that that's the legacy that my parents have left, that like I go here and they're like, oh, like that's you, like you're their son, like we love you, and I'm like, oh, like thanks, like this is amazing. Like it's cool to see like just the impact that like a smaller action can have, and like it's really the butterfly effect when you think about it. I think
and those kind of good energy gets passed down. I know your mother also wrote a self-help book that did very well as well, if you don't mind telling us a bit about that.
I mean, that was kind of like my mom has had so many jobs. Like I feel like she's like I think her journey kind of started when she was she lost like 85 pounds and became a personal trainer, and we were all like, awesome, this is so cool. And that's, I think that's where I learned how to like, you know, go to the gym and work out, and I learned good form. And she would actually never let me do anything over like 5 pounds until I had the form like perfect, or she wouldn't let me do it. I hated it. I was so mad. But it was that, and then she kind of branched out into more like, you know, like life coaching and like fitness coaching, and she started doing classes and boot camps and this, that. I was like, cool. So it was all within the fitness world. And then she started doing motivational speaking, and that's kind of the one she's mainly pursuing right now. It's that, and she's a medium. And then she became an author, and we were like, slow down, we can't keep up, you know, I don't know what's going on. But it was really cool to see. And it's like, I think my reputation at Quinnipiac has kind of been like, everyone kind of makes fun of me. I'm like, oh, Armaan, he knows everybody. You know, I know a lot of people here, and I'm very busy all the time, but my mom is so much more busy than me.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's like, I get it from somewhere. Like even my grandpa, like he's you know, born and raised, lived in India his whole life, and then he comes here to America to live with us for a while. And I'm like, he has more friends than I do. I'm like, this is crazy. I'm like, you just got here. Where did you meet all of them? And it's just great. I feel like that's like the kind of another thing that's been passed down is like that gene is like the gene of people, like people's skills, knowing people, and I think networking even is just like kind of one of the best skills you can have in our industry and really everyone.
Yeah, I mean, and people's skills, like you mentioned, really are everything. And you bring up our industry, so movies. So how about you tell us, Armaan, some of your favorite movies?
Yeah, I'll be giving you all the segues today, Zicast. My favorite movies. I'll go. I really like mid-90s. That's a really good movie. I think that movie is like just a vibe. Like it's just a fun watch. I really like Lahain. I still don't know how to pronounce it, to be honest with you. But that's a really good one. We watched that in my directing class with Ash, and that was like, it was just such a well-made, like beautiful movie. I feel like that's like I feel like that's my like film bro movie. It's like, oh yeah, it's like black and white. It's in a different language. Like that's like such a film bro thing to say. I feel like. And it's funny because I'm like not like, I'm so bad at movies. Like I don't watch a lot of movies. Like I'm a show guy, you know this, and I'm a huge music guy, but I'm not really into like as many movies. So it's like that's my film bro movie for you, Zicast. I'll give you, let's see, Get Out. I think Get Out and Us both are just two of my favorite movies. Jordan Peele's great. I didn't love Nope. I don't think I was smart enough to understand the point of it. You know, I watched it. I was like, I don't know what the hell's going on here, but like it was good. It was just like I didn't get it. And then let's see, another favorite movie of mine. Let me pick a fun one, like a nice comedy. I like Crazy Rich Asians. That's my favorite plane movie. Like my favorite movie to watch on a plane. I feel like that's a lot of people's plane movie is Crazy Rich Asians. And then I'll go, I think The Hangover is a classic. That's a really fun one.
Awesome. So touched a lot of bases there. And overall, Armaan, I'd like to thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me, Zicast. I'm glad we could finally do this.
Awesome. And do you have anything you'd like to leave the audience with, like a plug or anything like that?
I think my motivational words would just be, you know, do good things, have fun, enjoy life. I feel like such an unk. That's what everyone calls me.
We are unks, so
we about to graduate. I feel really old now. I feel like that's kind of where we are. So I think, what's that Ferris Bueller quote? Life's pretty fast. If you don't look around, something, you're gonna miss it. You know. Yeah. That's my motivational quote.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, thank you for coming on, Armaan. It was so much fun getting to hang out with you in LA. And it's amazing how that you've been able to find something to focus on, like TV writing, and something that you're pursuing with so much passion. That's something I greatly admire. You kind of presented everything you do so well here, and overall it's fun hanging out with you, and I'm excited to send you more Kendrick Lamar memes.
Oh, I can't wait for them, Zicast. Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad we could finally do this.
Of course. And as always, this is Ryan Zix with the Zicast, for everyone is story, signing off. Thank you so much for watching.